On the computer next to the Tensile Tester, double-click on the TW Elite icon and just log in with the appropriate credentials. Note that the student account has no password. So here we are at the home screen, which essentially just gives us a recipe of templates to run. For our purposes, we're just going to go into the custom templates right over here and select the GHU-EM tension extensometer recipe. For low force testing, you can just choose any of the low force tension recipes, such as wire over here. Now I'm just gonna let this recipe fully load up. There we go. Now for casual use, just stay out of the Define tab unless you are experienced with tensile test operations and know how to create your own custom tests. Before we modify any parameters in the Monitor tab for our test, notice the force gauge on the bottom of the screen, just right over here. This needs to be quickly calibrated before we use it simply by using the wheel on the controller. So make sure you just unlock the controller and then you can start moving it. Note that it is very sensitive, so just apply very little pressure. So that we don't have to look at the controller every time, we can right-click on this box and press Display on the handset so that these values move over to the controller for easy use. Alrighty, now that should be good to go right there. Note to never use the large up and down arrows for this type of calibration because you don't want the grips from crashing into each other and destroy your sample. So to keep this simple, we're going back into the Monitor tab. We're only going to modify a few parameters so that we can just specify our load cell and our sample. So our width was 0.645 centimeters. So we can change our units over here. And our thickness was 0.475 centimeters. Centimeters. And there we go. The extensometer gauge length is preset for 25.4 millimeters. Now, depending on your material and its elasticity, the strain rate target can be a little bit variable. Since we're testing aluminum here, I'm going to place the strain rate target at 8%, so that this process doesn't take too long. Now, let's leave the data acquisition rate alone, and the load cell maximum and minimum look pretty good for the 50 kilonewton load cell that we are using. So now that we're done, we're just going to, oh yes, before you can perform any tests, you have to make sure that your controller is locked so nothing accidental occurs. So now that we're done, let's press the green play button. And it's going to ask us to confirm our values that we're using, 0.645 centimeters, 0.475 centimeters. And we're going to just press OK and allow for the test to start on our sample. Now that our test is done, let's review the data that we took. Since there was no sharp cutoff in the early regions of the graph, then that shows that the system was tight enough and didn't allow for any slipping of the sample. Now, if you have more data that you want to take, say for example you just want to add more test runs into here with different samples that you wanted to put, you can just press the play button up here and modify your values. Let me show you right here. So you just enter in your values over there, you press OK, but I don't want to do that right now, so I'm just going to stop the test. Alrighty. Now, going back to here, although there is quite a bit of content on the screen, I can show you the more important functions. Up here, we can modify the amount of data that's being shown to what we desire, with more columns being more data windows being shown. So, for example, let me go back to the original test. So, for one panel, you'll be able to see the stress versus strain graph, but if you go over to 2, you'll be able to see this variable table that's over here in conjunction with it. And then 4, like more, you get the point. You're able to see more data at one point, at one time. So to change what set of data is being shown, simply right-click on any just box over here, and then go over to this Views tab right here. So in order to change it, let's just add a view here. Let's add another variable table over here. And I'll just keep it at variable table 2 and press OK. And see, now I have all this wealth of information over here. If for any reason that I wanted to just go back to the stress versus strain graph, I can just use this switch to view here and then press review chart, and then it will bring me back to my original graph. To see all of the current variables within the system throughout the test, we can go over to the runtime values tab over here and search through all of the variables listed. For example, if I wanted to see something like the chord modulus elongation point at point 1 and 2, I'll be able to see their values over here, as well as the default parameters that you set for when you're running this test, such as the load cell, minima and maxima, as well as with the data acquisition rate, different types of strain points, etc., etc. To modify the data in the graph, simply right-click on the axis. From here, we can alter the variables that are being compared, such as in y-axis data or x-axis data, and the units that these variables are in, such as y-axis units and x-axis units. In Configure Chart, Add or Remove Markers, or Add Text, you can modify the format of the graph itself to how you want to choose to use it. So let's say, for example, I didn't want my line here to be red. So instead, I'm just going to choose a different color. What would be good? Forest green. That looks nice. And then from here as well, you can also modify the units as to which your variables appear in. So the point is that there's a lot of different settings that you can mess around with in here in order to get the graph to your particular specifications. With the copy values, copy image, save as image, and print, you'll be able to export just this section of data to a report that you may want to put this into. So to export all of the data in a single report, you can go up here to these little menus over here. You can go up here to generate a report for your selected or all test runs. Let me delete this over here because there's no data in this test run. All we care about is this one over here. So here, in these menus over here, you can start up new tests, save your data, or open up some older data saved on the system. So that's right over here. Hopefully this video was helpful in serving as an introduction to taking and examining the data taken on the MTS Criterion Model 43 Tensile Tester. For more help, please contact the Department of Material Science to set up an appointment for training. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck!